Welcome to our She Rises podcast, Confetti Conversations, where together we'll discuss topics with a cup of coffee and a handful of confetti. Join our host, author and speaker Holly Wagner and her friends as they share their experiences on real issues, real questions from you, and throw in a little random nonsense along the way.
Hi, I'm Holly. Welcome to Confetti Conversations. Today I'm going to talk about conflict. Like how to fight fair, how to handle confrontation, the stuff we just really need to know, but maybe we don't want to do it. So we'll have a little bit of that conversation. We live in a world that is full of strife. Neighbor against neighbor, family member coming against family member, ethnicity against ethnicity, nation against nation. And that division, in the Bible, it tells us that division started way back with Adam and Eve when they went against God's direction. And so from the Garden of Eden onward, there have been these conflicts and disagreements between the people that God created. And conflict's a given. But followers of Jesus are supposed to strive for peace. And what I found is that real peace oftentimes comes on the other side of conflict. Peace has to be made before it can be kept, because the only real force is peace. You can't pursue a lack of conflict. We can only pursue peace. So how do we do that? Well, conflict is always a possibility because I'm not perfect and you're not perfect. Humanity is flawed. Now, conflict isn't always a bad thing because there are no two people who will agree on everything. When different personalities with different backgrounds and ethnicities and genders and expectations work or even live together, there will probably be some friction. And so contrary to popular wisdom or popular thought, conflict, it isn't a bad thing on a team. It's not a bad thing. Fear of conflict sometimes is actually a sign of problem. And in many families or organizations, I think there is just this false idea that we should never disagree, particularly among nonprofits. We think we should all get along all the time, nobody have any disagreements. But what I found is that constructive conflict, the kind that challenges ideas and challenges people, that's good, it's constructive. But destructive conflict, the bad kind, that's when it attacks people and attacks ideas. But just let me say this one little thing, not every situation requires a confrontation. Solomon wisely pointed out that the prudent person could overlook an insult, and it's to one's honor and glory to overlook a transgression. So as a leader, sometimes you have to determine, is this situation worth having a confrontation over? Is this situation worth having a hard conversation? Now, I think there are two kinds of conflicts that can arise. There are the interpersonal kind and the morals and values conflict. But most of the ones that we deal with in a family or on a team are the interpersonal conflicts. And the Apostle Paul, he offers a really great first step in conflict resolution between team members and family members. Are you ready for this? He says, submit to one another. I love it. Humble yourself. I'm supposed to humble myself before you. You humble yourself before me. When we humble ourselves before each other, that is an amazing first step. Be willing. Humbling simply means being willing to see something from someone else's point of view. Being willing to learn who the other person is. Spend more time trying to understand them than seeking to be understood. And at Oasis, at our team, we use disc profile, we've used Myers-Briggs in the past, and now our new favorite is the Enneagram. So we use all of these tools, and it's not just to stick on our door, it's so that we can truly discover the strengths and weaknesses in each other and understand and have conversations based on that. Matthew 18, Jesus described the way to handle conflict with the people closest to you. And he said, go to the person and talk to them face to face. Face to face. And man, I just think our ability to communicate face to face has so declined in the years. That used to be the only way people talked. But then it became the letter and then the telephone. And then now we have long conversations over text. But Jesus says, go to someone's face, have a face-to-face conversation. Because now if people are mad, they just post it on Facebook or they rant on the social media streams, but that's not what we're supposed to do. If there's an issue between you and someone in your family or on your team or in your department, you go to them first. You don't talk to somebody else first. You go to them first. face to face. Don't talk to anybody else. You go to that person first. And then when you do, actually before you do, ask God where you might have a wrong perspective, or maybe even where you're operating out of a place of hurt. Because I found a lot of times when I'm getting ready to have this conversation with someone about a situation that I didn't like, it's really coming from on my own hurt. I had my feelings hurt. I got betrayed by the last person, so I'm coming in here with that edge to have this conversation. So it's just good to figure out your own heart first. Check out what's going on in you. And, maybe ask God for wisdom to help you own the pieces of this conflict that are yours to own, because 100% of your part is 100%. So your part is your part. And I've just found that there have been so many times I have spent so much time trying to find the speck in someone else's eye rather than take the tree trunk out of my own eye, right? So the first step in any conflict is just looking inward, figuring out what's going on in your own soul. And then figuring out the right time. Is this the right time to have this conversation? Because maybe they're, either just coming home from work, or they're had a busy day, or didn't get enough sleep, or they just lost their job. I don't know what the situation might be, but you want to have any sort of challenging conversation at the right time. So, figure that part out. And then when you are having the conversation, listen. Listen to what the other person's saying. And to be honest, sometimes that has been a challenge for me. Because rather than listening, what I'm doing is I'm thinking of all the things I'm going to answer with, all the ways I'm going to clarify what I, said, or defend my position. And if I'm truly going to get the peace I'm longing for, I have to actually listen. So I'm just encouraging you, listen. Maybe ask clarifying questions. So now what I do with Philip or someone on our team, I'll say, this is what I heard you say. Is that what you meant? Just ask those questions. And again, take into consideration who that person is, the strengths and weaknesses, and any confrontation should be done in a loving way. Yes, we speak the truth, but we only speak the truth in love. And avoid finger pointing, blaming, ultimatums, slamming doors, all the stuff you learned in kindergarten. Don't do that. No biting, no kicking, no punching, no ultimatums. So many times we default back to blame, just like they did in the garden. But don't do that. In that kind of conversation, own what's yours to own. Don't get defensive. Be willing. Because remember, the goal is peace, which produces unity. And let me just encourage you, it doesn't happen always in one conversation. Sometimes you have to have more than one. And Jesus told his followers that if the conflict escalated, then maybe you need to bring someone else into the conversation who can help keep the peace, help guide the conversation, get a mediator. That's pretty important. Now, while most of us don't enjoy confrontation at all, avoiding it can be deadly, can produce damaging results on your team and in your family. And there's an amazing example in the Bible about King David. And he avoided conflict with his sons, and it didn't help. His son Absalom had a brother Amnon, and Amnon raped the sister Tamar. And David did nothing about that. And then Absalom got so angry about that situation when he found out that he ended up killing Amnon. And David did nothing about that. And so Absalom ended up leaving the city and stayed away for years, and only came back when David's leader Joab asked him to come back. And then even then, David didn't want to talk to him. So there was so much resentment and anger in Absalom for the lack of conversation with his dad. And I'm not excusing Absalom's behavior. That was obviously horrible. But I just wonder if it couldn't have been solved if David had been willing to have some of the hard conversations up front, the painful conversations about issues I'm sure that he didn't want to. So avoiding the conflict didn't help. And that's one of those morals, values conflicts, when it goes against what we believe. And so here at Oasis, we have values. And one of the things that's important to us is diversity. And not just that we stand next to each other and go, look, we're different. No, but we do life together. And so we really can't tolerate prejudice. Philip said a long time ago in a message one time, he said, we're all prejudiced. You just need to be honest and ask yourself, How prejudiced am I, and to what degree am I? And then own that part. But because that's such an important value to us is unity and diversity, then we will not tolerate any sort of bigotry that one person would have toward another. So I don't know what it would be for you, but what are those values that are crucial and important that's worth having a conversation about, that's worth pushing through confrontation? There was some confrontation in the Bible between Paul and Peter. Peter was trying to separate himself from some of the Gentile believers that he had hung out with, and now he's trying to separate himself from them. And when the Judaizers showed up, and Paul came and challenged him, he said, no, Jesus brought all of us together. There is no such thing as Jew or Greek, Gentile. No, we're all one. And if Paul hadn't done that, the church would look very different. So that's one of those values that was worth having a confrontation about. Was it fun? Probably not. So I know that conflict can be challenging, conflict in your home and certainly in the workplace. And I'm not saying seek out conflict, but if there's an issue that you have smushed down, that you have just pushed down, I promise you it will explode in an unhealthy way if we're just not willing to have the hard conversations. So I'm just encouraging you in your journey toward peace, which ultimately produces unity, which produces God's blessing. Sometimes you might have to have a hard conversation or two. You might have to push through some conflict. So send me questions if you have them, but I'm on your side and we're in this together. And do you know what makes everything better? I think confetti, so maybe you should take some with you.
Thanks for joining us today. If you have a topic you'd like to submit, we'd love to hear from you. Please email us at sherises@oasisla.org. And for more information about She Rises, Holly Wagner, or our upcoming She Rises events, including our annual conference, please visit sherises.com. And make sure you're following us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at SheRisesLA.